Okay, inshallah, we are live. So just give me 1 second, and then Brother Abbas, I will ask you to begin. Okay. So, Brother Abbas, if you would like to begin with Quran.
Inshallah, we start Surah Al-Waqi'ah. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هواء منبثا فكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة أصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين على سرور موضونة متكئين عليها متقابلين يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخيرون ولحم طير مما يشتهون وحور عين كامثال اللؤلؤ المكنون جزاء بما كانوا يعملون لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا تأثيما إلا قيلا سلاما سلاما وأصحاب اليمين ما أصحاب اليمين في سدر مخدود وتلح منضود وذل ممدود وماء مسكوب وفاكهة كثيرة لا مقطوعة ولا ممنوعة وفرش مرفوعة إنا أنشأناهن إنشاء فجعلناهن أبقارا عربا أترابا لأصحاب اليمين ثلة من الأولين وثلة من الآخرين وأصحاب الشمال ما أصحاب الشمال في سموم وحميم وذل من يحموم لا بارد ولا كريم إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك مسرفين وكانوا يصرون على الحنث القديم وكانوا يقولون أئذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أئنا لمبعوثون أو آباؤنا الأولون قل إن الأولين والآخرين لمجموعون إلى ميقات يوم معلوم ثم إنكم أيها الضالون المكذبون لآكلون من شجر من زقوم فمالئون منها البطون فشاربون عليه من الحميم فشاربون شرب الحميم هذا نزلهم يوم الدين نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون أفرأيتم ما تمنون أأنتم تخلقونه أم نحن الخالقون نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين على أن نبدل أمثالكم وننشاكم فيما لا تعلمون ولقد علمتم النشأة الأولى فلولا تذكرون أفرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون لو نشاء لجعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون أفرأيتم المال الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون لو نشاء جعلناه أجاجا فلولا تشكرون أفرأيتم النار التي تورون أأنتم أنشأتم شجرتها أم نحن المنشئون نحن جعلناه تذكرة ومتاعا للمقوين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم فلا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدهنون وتجعلون رزقكم أنكم تكذبون ولولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتسلية جحيم إن هذا لهو الحق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Thank you, Brother Abbas, for the beautiful recitation as always. Next, I would like to ask Brother Pervez to continue the program with poetry.
Salawat. तमसील हक की बात में हरगिज़ रवा नहीं आ जाए जो समझ में वो मेरा खुदा नहीं तमसील हक की बात में हरगिज़ रवा अल्लाह तेरे पहले अदम तान खल्क थी अल्लाह तेरे पहले अदम तान खल्क थी तेरे सिवा किसी का कोई आसरा नहीं तमसील हक की बात में हरगिज़ रवा नहीं हुज्जत बजुज़ अली नहीं सुन्नत के बाब में हुज्जत बजुज़ अली नहीं सुन्नत के बाब में हैदर की ज़ात नबी से जुदा नहीं तमसील हक की बात में हरगिज़ रवा नहीं इस्लाम में मुअद्दत कुर्बा का है लज़ूम इस्लाम में मुअद्दत कुर्बा का है लज़ूम اس پر عمل کا ہم کو مگر حوصلہ نہیں، تمثیل حق کی بات میں ہرگز روا نہیں، نانا کے ساتھ ساتھ ہیں قرآن لیے ہوئے، نانا کے ساتھ ساتھ ہیں قرآن لیے ہوئے، شبیر ہی شبیر ہیں نبی ہیں کوئی تیسرا نہیں، تمثیل حق کی بات میں ہرگز روا نہیں، صبر و رضا کی منزل آخر پہ دیکھ لو، صبر و رضا کی منزل آخر پہ دیکھ لو، تنہا حسین ہی ہے کوئی دوسرا نہیں، تمثیل حق کی بات میں ہرگز روا نہیں، دنیا میں بے شمار ہدایت کے ہیں چراغ، دنیا میں بے شمار ہدایت کے ہیں چراغ، خون حسین جیسی کسی میں ضیا نہیں، تمثیل حق کی بات میں ہرگز روا نہیں، اصغر نے مسکرا کے شہادت قبول کی، اصغر نے مسکرا کے شہادت قبول کی، ایسا جواب تیر کسی نے دیا نہیں، تمثیل حق کی بات میں ہرگز روا نہیں، اختر قیامت آ کے رہے گی یہاں مگر، اختر قیامت آ کے رہے گی یہاں مگر، وہ بھی جواب ثانیہ ہے کربلا نہیں، تمثیل حق کی بات میں ہرگز روا نہیں، آ جائے جو سمجھ میں وہ میرا خدا نہیں، صلوات۔
Thank you, Brother Pervis. Just a couple announcements before we invite Syed to continue his series with us tonight. The first is a thank you to everybody who has contributed to the Muharram fundraiser. Inshallah, a final reminder for those who have not had the opportunity to support IABA during this time. You can see on the screen the various ways that you can support. And inshallah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any member of the fundraising committee or programs. A reminder that inshallah, we do have program on Tuesday as well for the Shahadat of Syed Sakina with Sheikh Jafri. So please join us then. And then a sincere thank you to everybody who has volunteered to recite, whether it's poetry, Latmiya's Quran, over these blessed programs. We obviously cannot do this without everyone who is volunteering to recite. And if you would like to recite poetry, Latmiya's or Quran, please reach out to program committee and we'll be more than happy to schedule you. But truly thank you to everybody who has given the time and energy to do so. It has been a key reason why we've been able to keep the community together during these remote programs. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Syed Asad to join us for his final program. And on behalf of the entire community, we extend our gratitude and appreciation for you joining us even from afar. And inshallah, we'll be able to host you in Austin once again. Thank you, Syed.
Thank you very much. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. First of all, let me express my gratitude as well to the IABA community out in Austin, Texas, for including me in this year's IABA-Austin. And as the sister had mentioned, it would have been ideal for me to be there with all of you. There's something special about the community out in Austin. I have this special place in my heart for them, and it inshallah will be very soon that I'll be able to be there in person with all of you and benefit from your presence, inshallah. We ask Allah to accept our qaleel efforts to understand your deen and to further along the mission of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Our discussion in this mini 3-lecture series has been about change and the elements of change. And although it's a topic that usually is dedicated for a 10-day ashra, I thought I would at least ignite the process, begin the process, stimulate all of us in thinking a little bit about the idea of change and breaking the monotony of and the annual tradition of Azadari and see it as it should be seen, as a bridge, as a catalyst, as a spark for change. And I thought since, this was the first set of lectures that all of you were listening to post Ashura, that maybe we should talk a little bit about change. Now, the approach I had towards change was a little bit different. I believe that all of us understand the idea of needing to change. I don't think anybody's really comfortable with the level that they're at. I think if I was to take a quick survey of those who are listening to me right now, I would think, and maybe I'm wrong, the majority of us would always think to ourselves that we could always do better and be better. So the idea is not that should I change or should I not change? It's approaching this daunting task of changing. And that's why my first lecture 2 nights ago was about the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promoting a deen that requires you to enter it very slowly and to not adopt an all or nothing mentality, and to really change the way that we look at the deen from a result-driven deen to a process-driven deen, where Allah is obsessed with the process, not so much the results. And if we leave this world without achieving those desired results, Allah will reward us for the process. And that's why I spent the first lecture talking about the balance and the ease of the deen. Remember, we talked about the fluctuation of the heart, right? Iqbal and idbar. Talked about that hadith by the 11th Imam, that when the heart is open, confide in it. When it closes, wave it goodbye. There are moments where the heart wants to change, wants to be better. At that moment, give it as much as you can. It's like a child, right? I mean, I don't know about all of you, but I have a tough time. My wife and I have a tough time feeding our kids, to the point where I was going to put up a notice on our community billboard, on our bulletin board, that if anybody wants to come and feed my kids 3 times a day, I will pay you $1,000 a day just to feed my kids. It's torture to feed my kids. So that's why when they want to eat and they're hungry, you give them as much as you can, because you know that's not going to last, right? The heart's no different. The heart fluctuates. But when the heart is telling you that, look, right now I'm not accepting the amount of worship that maybe you want to give me, then don't force that issue. The criteria is our wajibat and our fara'id. Okay? And that led us to yesterday. How do I begin this process now, Syed Asad, of change? And I talked about the 3 pillars of deen, remember? I talked about the fact that change sometimes is a result of our worldview. If our worldview changes, we change. How we handle things change. What we deem important changes. Our actions change. Our level of patience, our level of anger, all those things change. Why? How? Our worldview has changed. We talked about the worldview yesterday. And then we end off last night talking about those 4 different departments and the 4 desired attributes that Islam wants from every human being. And there's no way that you forgot them, because there's no way you forget my lectures, but just as a reminder for myself, the 4 of them that we're looking to achieve now to really construct the humanity inside of us is wisdom, courage, modesty, and justice. These are the 4 that really kind of sum up what an insan should really be. And then I asked myself, I left a little bit of homework for you last night. Which of these 4 are we strong in? Which of the 4 are we weak in? And begin there. And that leaves us for tonight. Now tonight, what I want to talk about is how to sustain that change. And again, it's a massive topic. It really is. But I want to speak on something that it's a topic that's very near and dear to me. A lot of times, when I'm in private gatherings, bonfires, sometimes with a small group of youth, or young couples, for example, pre-COVID would invite me to their house. They would invite 5, 6 other couples with them, sit around in their basement, in the backyard, let's say, and talk about parenting in Islam. A lot of times I get asked the question, what were some of the things that you wish you knew growing up in the West that you know now? As you guys know, that I was born and raised in Toronto, belonged to a typical Pakistani immigrant family. Went to school here, went to uni here, worked for corporate here. I didn't go to the Hausa until late in my life. Right? So I lived everything that a lot of you are living right now. And the one thing that I really wish somebody would tell me is that be very, very picky about who you surround yourself with. It's one of those advices that my father, Marhum, would give me constantly, and I would ignore because I thought I know more than he does, right? He's an immigrant. He's from Karachi, Pakistan. What does he know about my life here? And yet again, one of those things that I often tell people that I wish I listened to him earlier in my life. I wouldn't make the mistakes that I made, and I wouldn't have befriended the people that I ended up befriending, only to figure out the hard way sometimes, with your heart broken and with bad habits now picked up, that this is not the group for me. Sometimes the element of the sustainability of change is to have the right people around you to help you maintain that change. If you've identified that this is my lifestyle, this is how I want to live, and I'm not going to apologize, I'm not going to bend, I'm not going to, sell out. No, right? I have that courage. Remember that courage from that courage from yesterday, that this is who I am. Then the part 2 of that is to surround yourself with the right people. And it's a topic I talk about constantly. All my camps, all my workshops up and down North America, it is one that I will forever talk about. Because a lot of you who are listening to me, my youth out there especially, some of you are at an age where everything is what your circle of influence says. Your parents could say A, your friends say B, you'll go down the B route. Eventually you'll grow out of it and the maturity will kick in and you realize that, look, I can have the best of both worlds. Right now it's either or. I can have amazing tarbiyat and guidance from my parents. I can also have some really good friends around you. So what I want to speak about tonight is that of proper change, 2 elements of sustaining change. Where, New Year's Day hits and we make all sorts of New Year's resolutions. And the first thing is that I'm going to join a gym, right? This is the year of health for me. And, stats show that, memberships, rise. They explode in January, and then eventually by March or April they fizzle out. Right? It's hard. And that's why the verse that I read for you every night in the khutbah from Surah Ankabut says, "Inna alladhina jahadu fina linahdiyannahum sabulna." For those who struggle in our path, God says, struggle in our path. Fina, who struggle with us, in us, basically in our path. Allah says, I will open up doors for you. I'll open up the path for you. Right? The one who migrates. Remember, we talked about, Inna alladhina amanu walladhina hajaru wa jahadu fi sabilillah ulaika yarjuna rahmatullah. The ones who have iman, the ones who migrate to a different spiritual realm, and the ones, of course, who struggle in our path, you can expect the mercy of Allah. The manifestation of the mercy of Allah are the doors that Surah Ankabut talks about. So you're not in this alone. Another reason why we should tackle it, right? But I'll tell you, man, growing up in the West, growing up in Toronto, what really helped me was that, later on in my life, at a crucial point in my life, I made the right friends and I married the right girl. And both of them, alhamdulillah, are still amazing choices. After this beard has gotten white now, the circle of friends that I have are incredible. And of course, my wife is an angel on earth, right? So 2 things I want to talk about tonight with all of you. And all of you know me, I don't lecture, I don't sit there and, I talk to you, up from up here. I'm quite comfortable, quite casual. Is the importance of surrounding yourself with the right person and the importance of selecting the right spouse. Now, a lot of you are already married, I know. And so you're saying, well, Syed, where were you 10 years ago, right? We could have used this advice 10 years ago. It doesn't mean that you can't use it now. It just means that however you are, you need to be that for your spouse today. It's amazing how the Quran talks about these topics. And that's one thing that I want my youth to understand. A lot of my youth, maybe too many, ask me, why isn't this discussed in Islam? Where is this discussed in Islam? Where can I find information about this? Why isn't this more readily available? And then when I tell them that it is, they're quite shocked. And one area that I found to be incredible, powerful verses in the Quran that we'll present and powerful ahadith in the books are on the circle of influence. It's that circle in our life made up of those people and those things that influence us. Very simple, right? From from social media and Instagram influencers to YouTube influencers, to our friends, to our family, to our spouse, and sometimes even to media. And all of that has to be carefully filtered and vetted, especially today. I find it incredible, and in the most negative way incredible. If there was a negative word for incredible, I find it daunting, upsetting. I find it worrisome at some of the stuff that our kids are watching today in these streaming companies. I find it very, very disturbing. As I mentioned before, I think I mentioned it here, gone are those days of family television, right? I sometimes I can't watch a show with my wife, let alone my young kids, right? And we think that, okay, it doesn't have an effect. It does have an effect. Absolutely has an effect. And I'm sorry, it doesn't mean that because you're later on, you're 45, 50, 31, 38, 36, you can watch those same shows that you couldn't watch when you're 15 or 16. Haram back then, haram today. Oh, but Syed, I'm mature now. I mean, it doesn't really have an effect on me. And therein lies the mistake. That we think that it doesn't have an effect on me. It does. Literally, guys, I can sit there and watch a kid today, the way he talks, the way he dresses, his lingo, his verbiage, his hashtags. I can tell you what he's listening to in terms of R&B and hip hop. I can tell you what he's watching in terms of Netflix. And all of it, I'm sorry, is destructive. This whole idea of, trying to convince today's parents that music is halal. Have you seen the music of today? Have you seen the music of that? Art is gone. The art is gone. It's just been filtered and been watered down to a disgusting show of whatever it is, entertainment. It's not talent, that's for sure. It's not talent. I'm sorry. It's a disgusting display of, and somehow you want the deen, the pure, beautiful deen, the perfect deen, to make that disgusting display of entertainment halal somehow. You know how many people ask me, find me a loophole, find me a loophole, find me a loophole. I'm not going to damage the deen's reputation by making that, let's say, for example, halal. Okay. When someone comes here and says, oh, why is music haram? That person knows exactly why music is haram. They've been influenced the wrong way. And that's the influence that I'm scared about. That comes from the idea that we have to watch what we give our eyes to watch. I'll tell you, a lot of our divorces today, I get phone calls all the time, are husbands who basically wake up one day and say, oh, my wife has let herself go. She's not as pretty as she was on the day I married her. You look at her and she's had 3 kids, 4 kids. She's too busy raising the kids and raising you for any self-love and any self-care. What do you want from her? Meanwhile, mashallah, you aren't a catch yourself. You have more hair on your ears than you do on your head, and mashallah. And now you're talking about people that letting themselves go, and that's only because we watch the garbage that we watch, and we think that those virtual women that look like that actually exist in real life, and they don't. I'm sorry, they don't. So our eyes are trained to only accept that to be beauty, when that's actually fake, falsehood. Filter upon filter, 1,000 lights, 8,000 cameras, angles, and afterwards, of course, some post editing. You turn off that TV show, you look over, and the wife that you should be looking at, of course, all of a sudden now fails in comparison, because that's fiction and this is reality. And that's the game that we play with our wives. And sorry, it's disgusting. It all goes back to influence. Right? So I don't want to go down that, right? I've already said enough. What I really want to focus on is being part of a non-toxic friendship. Okay, there's a lot of you right now sitting wherever you're sitting, watching me however you're watching me, in your living room, on your devices, let's say glued to the phone, and you guys are in toxic friendships. And you're in toxic friendships, but you can't get yourself out of it. The Holy Prophet says that a circle of friends are multiple bodies attached to one soul. That eventually, he says, you'll adopt the deen of your friends. And here, deen means the lexical deen, the way of life, the path of your friends. Not that you'll become Jew and Christian if you have Jewish or Christian friends, no. But the idea that end up, of course, liking what they like, eating what they like. And literally, I used to remember we had I'll tell you a story from my childhood. We had a group of guys that I had in high school. And alhamdulillah, one of the blessings I always had Shia friends. Sometimes it was a blessing, sometimes it was a curse. Anyways, we would go to this Chinese restaurant at least twice a month. Okay, and it was just our go-to place. All right, big fan of Chinese food. I still am, but back then I was, especially, and back then, in Toronto, we're talking about several years ago when I was a little bit younger. This halal Chinese now is hitting up the market everywhere. Anyways. So there was a certain dish that I always got when I go to any Chinese restaurant. I'm sitting there with my friends now, 6, 7 of us, right? We'd never miss one visit to this Chinese restaurant. 3 or 4 strong guys in the group would always, shove, let's say, a certain dish on the menu down our throats, and I didn't want it. Eventually, now that's the only thing I eat in the restaurants. Now, that's one silly example, but the idea is the level of influence that I would have, that that they would have on me. I would literally begin sounding like them, dressing like them, watching things that I would never want to watch in certain sports. I mean, right? Those kind of things. So we have to be very, very careful. Now, let me present to you a couple of verses of the Quran. A lot to say tonight, as usual. Number one is, the Quran describes in Surah Shu'ara a group of people that are about to enter the hellfire. Powerful verses. And when they're asked, what is it that you did in this world to make you on the brink of the hellfire in the next world? What is it that you did in this world? They could have said anything. They could have blamed anybody. They could have said, I was born and raised in Austin. Okay. So, it wasn't a Muslim town. I didn't go to a Muslim school. IABA came really late in my life. In the beginning, didn't have much of a community established. Right? There's a lot of norms when I was growing up that were completely haram, and either sometimes I would lose that battle, sometimes I would win that battle. Talk about the fact that I was an only child, didn't have very, very spiritual parents. I don't know, thousand excuses. And the one that the Quran captures is amazing. And the conversation ends off by the people on the brink of the hellfire that would sit there and say, woe unto us. Ya laytani lam attakhiz fulanan khalila. If only I didn't take fulan, so-and-so, as a friend of mine, I wouldn't be in this predicament today. Whoa. Of the 1,000 things to blame, if I was to ask people today, why aren't you as spiritual as you should be? They'll give me a long list. This conversation, recorded as a verse of the Quran, the person says, you know what, I'm in this predicament because of that friend. Now, mind you, blame game is there for sure, right? This person made their own choice. But this verse is pointing to the power of one bad friend or a group of bad friends. Like, my parents would drill me and grill me and put me on the hot seat about who my friends are. Who are they? Where are they from? What's their religion? What's their culture? Have you met their parents? I'm like, what's the problem? Like, am I guilty for a crime? And now I get it. And those parents right now, and hopefully you're sitting with your families, I really hope. And if my kids are watching out there, my youth, whatever age you are, and you have parents who are adamant about the friends that you make, and they're very serious and they're very picky about it, and they're heavily involved in that circle of influence process, thank them every single day. It might be annoying, it might be irritating, blah, 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 but the reality is that they've understood in their wisdom the effect of one bad apple in your group. I've literally seen kids, I swear to God, it kills me, it breaks my heart. You sit there with these kids, sometimes these youth of today, one-on-one, right? And I've had many one-on-ones in Toronto, over a coffee, blah, 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 a coffee, a Nanaimo bar. And by the way, my comment yesterday was meant as a joke. Unfortunately, you can't get that vibe from a camera, but I wasn't complaining about the community at all. There's not a single ounce of IABA I would ever complain about. The person who messaged me is a dear, dear friend of mine, very close to me, my younger brother, who is heavily involved in the community. I was ribbing him a little bit, so please, I was just joking around. Zero complaints when it comes to IABA, never a complaint when it comes to IABA. Anyways, so one-on-ones, when I picked this kid's brain, talking about 16, 17, 18 years old, about certain things about God, spirituality, he blows me away. The amount of piety, the amount of maturity, the amount of wisdom that we see in this kid is amazing. I mean, sometimes I learn so much from my one-on-ones and my phone conversations and my WhatsApp chats, and then I see that same kid in his group and I can't recognize him. the way he dresses, the way he walks, the way he talks, the language he uses. He even changes his hairstyle. Like if he's gonna go and grab a coffee with Asad, he looks sharif, he tucked in his shirt, combed his hair to one side. But if I see him in some place with his friends, I could tell he's shutting off his conscience. He's turning off that switch of his zamir. He knows what's right and what's wrong, but he's turned it off all because why? The sense of belongingness is huge inside of my kids today. They just want to believe that I belong to a tribe. I just want to belong to something. I know these guys aren't great. They commit crime, they commit sin, but they make me feel like I'm a brother of theirs. And that's more powerful. I'll close my eyes. I'll do whatever they want me to do. I'll say sorry to God later. I don't want to lose that brotherhood. It's so unfair, and it's not unfair to anyone else but yourself. You're better than that. Your parents have raised you better than that. To throw it all away for these people's acceptance, to me, is nothing short of an injustice you're doing to yourself. Examine your friendships, guys. Please examine your friendships. Ask yourself, am I in a toxic friendship? Do these people bring out the shaitan inside of me? Do I end up listening to things I would never listen to when I'm alone? Speaking about people, talking, using foul language when I would never do it by myself. Or, inshallah, they bring out the best in me. I feel like, a new person. I feel so hopeful. I'm actually close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have a circle of friends myself. I really do. They're about my age. We're all married, everything. And every so often we get together and, it's late at night, when the kids are asleep and the wife is asleep, and we go and we there's 5 of us maybe. We hang out in someone's basement. We watch a little bit of sports. We might even have a very deep talk about Imam Zamana. We might even joke all night. You'd be surprised. I don't sit there and say, who's your 6th Imam? Who's the mother of the 7th Imam? No, I don't do that. Sometimes I'm in my hoodie and I'm just relaxed. I'm sitting there but when I'm with them, I don't feel like I have to be on edge. I don't feel like I'm constantly kind of, okay, just don't say anything that might make you sound religious. Remember, you're not pious. You're not pious. Okay? And that's not the way it should be. That's not the way it should be. When you have the right people around you, change is hard enough, but it makes it a little bit easier, and it sustains itself when those people now, they start to call you out when you slip off that path. And that's what you want. And that's what you want. And let me tell you guys one thing. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says that if you have made 1 or 2 friends like that, and there's many ahadiths that talk about the testing of friends. When I say testing of friends, I don't mean to like the testing, meaning there are limits, right? There are conditions of a friendship. Right? Like for example, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, and it's a comprehensive hadith, and anyone who wishes to want it, I can share it with you, no problem. He says there are limits of friendship, and the ones who maintain those limits can be a true friend. And it's not about numbers. That's one point I want to make before I move on to the hadith. It's not about numbers. Wallahi, my total amount of friends I have are maybe 4 or 5 that are very, very close. And within those circles, there are circles, obviously, right? There are some who are friends through other friends, meaning I would never hang out with that guy by myself unless this guy was here, right? I wouldn't. They have to be there for me to hang out with this guy. Right? It sounds like a Seinfeld episode, but that's exactly how it is. Right? So there's circles within circles. So literally my inner circle, besides my wife, who's my best friend, is 1 or 2 people tops. And Imam Ali says, if you found 1 or 2 people like that, you have been blessed. We're stuck in a society of numbers. How many subscribers, how many followers, how many retweets, et cetera, et cetera. Forget all that. Focus on quality. The friendship level in Islam is at the soul level, where you find somebody who's worried about your grave just as much as they're worried about their own grave. Do we have 1 person like that in our life? 1 person like that in my life. If I steer towards shaitan, I can count on her to pull me back. Just 1. Don't need 158 subscribed. No, you don't. You need 1. The hadith now. Just a few examples of what the Ahlul Bayt consider to be a good circle of friends around you. Number 1, Imam Sadiq says, is that your happiness is their happiness, your grief is their grief. Those things that make you happy, whether or not they're affiliated, you equally are as happy. For example, your niece is getting married, mashallah, khandan ki shadi ho rahi hai, beautiful, everyone is happy, happy, happy. You have to go shopping. She has no idea who your niece is. It's not her family, but she is right alongside with you, going shopping, and taking part and making sure it's a celebration. And then when you lose a loved one that maybe your friend doesn't know, the first person at your door is them. There's some people that we claim to be friends that when I'm happy, I look at them and they look at me with eyes of envy. When I'm grieving, they're nowhere to be found. Right? Sometimes the silver lining in a tragedy is that you really find out who's who in your life. I tell you. You really, really do. And it's not always doom and gloom, right? You might lose people that you thought were close to you, but you might actually end up being surprised by others that you thought we weren't as close. But this guy's been here every day at the hospital while my kid fights for their life. He brings me soup when I was sick. That's the first limit. The second limit is that your success doesn't bother them. Again, it goes back to the idea of envy, right? There are people, that you are working for a corporation, and you get a job, a promotion, right? Your friend hasn't worked in many, many months. He's struggling to establish his career. You, mashallah, are climbing up that corporate ladder. Naturally, now you get word of a promotion, right? You've gone into the level of management, so you call your friend. Say, oh my God, guess what? I got this promotion. It's Friday. Let's go. Let's grab a coffee. Come on, I want to tell you all about my new job and my new role and blah, blah, blah. And there's a level of envy and hasad and jealousy, and she or he is not really, they're not vibing with you, right? They're not enjoying. You can tell it's like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Every time you talk about work, they talk about something else. You want them to succeed. Like, they should never feel like you don't deserve it. They should always make you feel like if you got a promotion, it's because you deserve it. In fact, you should get 10 more promotions. That's how good you are. You want someone to share in your success. Okay. Number 3, the third limit. Their inner is their outer is their inner, Imam Sadiq says. Allahu Akbar. This is so important. I tell you, so important. When everyone is watching, she's interlocking your hands, and you're sitting there and you're going down the hallway skipping at school. BFS for life. Best friends. She's my sister. We're fam. When you're not there, behind your back, if a group is sitting there bashing you, he or she doesn't say a single word. And word gets back to you that, look, these guys were bashing you. Your boy was there, didn't say a word. That's why Imam Ali says one of the biggest litmus tests of a good friend is how are they with you behind your back. Behind your back. No matter what happens, Mulana, this guy has my back. My 3 a.m. phone call is him. And he'll pick up and he'll come wherever I'm asking him to come. We can't say that about everybody in our life, right? But those people who in front of others, who knows? Maybe they gain a lot of popularity because they're my friend. I don't know. Or maybe, they don't want to come across. Or maybe they're hypocritical, right? So they're okay with you, but they're also okay with people who don't like you as well. Right? So their inner says something else and their outer says something else. That hypocrisy is not a good sign of a friend. And the final one that we have, and there's more, but in the interest of time, I want to move on to the spouse discussion in a moment. But the final one, he says, is that examine how they are with their parents. Very, very important. Do not befriend the one who disrespects their parents in front of you. Disrespects your parents anyways, but especially in front of you. right? So you're at someone's house, let's say, for example, you're inside the room, right? It's time for dinner, and their mom walks in and says, look, it's time for dinner, come downstairs. And your friend snaps at her, mom, we're having a conversation. Next time, knock. Okay, we're coming down. What's the big deal? Holy. And as she leaves, such an annoying mom, so annoying. God, this is, ugh. She just never and just talking really horribly about the mom. That's not a good sign, Imam Salih says. Because if they can or he can't uphold the respect of their mother, he won't uphold your respect either. If he can easily disrespect his parents, he can easily disrespect you as well. On top of that, you want someone who has good morals and values, right? There's nothing better in morality than respecting your parents. So the first point of my speech tonight, and I've already gone, a little bit over, is that the idea of having a good circle of friends around you to sustain that change. If tomorrow you decide to put on your hijab, your friends will support you. If tomorrow you decide, let's say, to drop this habit, your friends will support you. If tomorrow you decide, let's say, to run for programming chair at IABA, your friends will support you. And not only your friends, but it's important now, of course, to marry the right person as well. And just 10 minutes of that, and then Masayib, inshallah. I'll share with you one hadith, again, by Imam Jafri Sadiq, alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa anjil faraja. Very beautiful hadith. And this is not just for those who are looking for a spouse. These are also those who've been married for 10 days or 10 years or 40 years, doesn't matter. He says, marry for piety. Don't marry just for beauty and wealth. Because when you marry for piety, beauty and wealth accompany piety. So important. Let me explain. He said, but for the one who marries just for beauty and wealth and no piety, they lose all three. The piety is gone, the wealth eventually runs out, and the beauty also eventually runs out. I'm sorry. When you marry for piety, everything comes with piety. When you marry for other than piety, everything is lost with the piety. Right? And sometimes piety is not shown when things are great. Sometimes the piety level of the spouse is shown when you're going through a hardship as a couple, right? I've seen people who are quote unquote religious and their son has gone through a nasty divorce and they turned ugly so quickly. This is the guy who's the first line in Salat, Du'a Komel, nice beard, a little bit of a mark of sujood on his forehead, everything. And oh my God, like what he says about his ex-daughter-in-law and her family, it's disgusting. That's why the same Imam Salih says, when you marry for piety, if you marry a pious man, he'll keep you, meaning he'll stay married to you under that piety. And if he has to let you go, or if you have to let him go, he'll let you go and separate from you also under the realm of piety. The problem today is that we still have, and it shocks me, we still have these individuals, and sometimes the parents are to be discussed. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak ill of my elders, but sometimes it's the idea that, their criteria of a good spouse is nothing what the kid wants. So many battles I hear that, Malana, I want to marry a muhajjaba, I want to marry a hijabi, I want to marry someone who's pious, but my family has flat out said that, I don't want a hijabi daughter-in-law in my house. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Right? And we settle ourselves into things like shadism and colorism and racism. Sometimes we don't know it, right? Somebody comes to your door asking your daughter for marriage, and they're slightly a darker shade than you would like. Could be an amazing guy, could be a 4.0 GPA, could be a manager in a solid firm, right? Syed, great, everything on paper, but he's one slightly darker shade than I like. So we say no. Istikhara didn't come out, ma. Okay. Or this person who's come for my daughter in marriage or for my son in marriage now is, fair and light and tall and thin, right? No religion, no akhlaq. The family is known to be a horrible family, but he looks good on paper, good genes, we'll say yes. And 5-10 years down the road, When the wife wants to be more religious and he has no inclination, then they call me. What do I do? I'm trying to raise my daughter to wear hijab, and my father and my husband says no. What do I do? Well, with all due respect, sister, you had no business marrying him to begin with. Sorry. We have to remove these satanic elements, and I'll say it that way, and I'm sorry to be harsh. The biggest problem that Shaitan had with Adam wasn't his character, wasn't his akhlaq, wasn't his education or salary. It was something that he was made of, something that he had no control over. Right? خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. I'm fire, he's clay. أنا خير منه, I'm better than he is. Based on what? Based on what are you better at? You're looking at just the zahir, the apparent? Yes, absolutely. Right? And that angered God so much that all of those 4,000 years of worship, he said, forget it, you're out. You're out. You're ikhraj from my garden. You reduce yourself to someone who just looks at things that are exoteric, that are apparent. You don't look at the batin of the human being. That maybe if the color of the skin is a slightly darker shade, their heart, their soul is bright, is nurani, is light, that you don't see. So I'll tell you, it's very difficult to elevate towards God if you don't have a travel companion with you, and your spouse is a travel companion. Okay, for my husbands out there, your wives are not maids of yours, they're not cooks of yours, they're not babysitters of yours. Both of you must travel together towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you must lead them towards God as husbands. We want the wilayat, that wilayat comes with responsibility. When you marry the right individual, that person will actually not only sustain the change, they might even trigger the change. Say, look, why don't we start doing this in the house? Maybe 5 verses in the Quran is a Quran circle, me, you, and our daughter, or just me and you. 5 me, 5 you with English translation. If we come across something to discuss, we'll discuss it. What better? That's amazing. Let's make sure as a couple, as a family, we don't miss Thursday nights at our center. Let's make sure, every so often we spend 1 hour sitting in front of TV and watching a lecture and comparing those, pausing and discussing the point of the alim. That's all what? It's all journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Rum, my last point in the Masahib, Surah Rum, verses 20 to 26, I believe, or 25, sorry, 6 verses. To 26, I'm sorry. All of them start with وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, from his signs, from his signs, from his signs, all of them, right? And then he announces what are his signs. And if you examine those verses, they really are incredible, guys. From Surah Rum, verse 20 to 26, all of them. Some of them are obvious signs of God that we all know. Some are not so obvious. He talks about, for example, the fact that we have been inna khalaqnakum min tarabin. We've created you from dirt, right? وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. We created from his signs that is a creation of the heavens and the earth. وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَنْوَانِكُمْ. The different languages and tongues and the different colors. All of that is from his signs, right? Another area, he says, the lightning, the barak that creates khawf and fear inside of you is from my signs. The sleep at night, the naum at night, the sleep at night is from my signs. And sandwiched in between somewhere in these verses, he talks about marriage. From the creation of the human being to the creation of the heavens and the earth, to the fact that the same creator that made you from dirt and this heaven and this earth and the various cultures and languages, beautiful array of colors, black, white, red, brown, the same creator created the institution of marriage. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. That from you and for you he created spouses, so you may find serenity in them. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And we placed, Allah says, between these two, compassion and mercy. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لِآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Oh, in the coming of pairs and the creation of spouses, there is a sign for those who wish to reflect, who are the Ahl Fikr. Meaning Allah now places a high level of importance and respect to this institution of marriage and spouse selection, which means that we also need to respect the process and not reduce it to things like, godi, patli, tall, this and that, make sure that she has blue eyes and make sure that he's fair skinned and make sure that this all superficial things, superficial things that later on will look ugly to a person after a while. Remember, when a person inside is beautiful, that beauty now begins to appear on the outside as well. But when somebody who might have beautiful features on the outside, but they're ugly inside, that ugliness also resonates outside as well. Right? So, sorry, I threw a lot tonight at you guys. And I didn't mean to be everywhere. But it's important in the idea of the sustainability of change. We have to surround ourselves with a fighting chance of change. Okay, it's easy to go back to our comfort zone and how we are and how we've always been. This is who I am, right? I can't change. No, it's wrong. And part of that process of change is to make sure you have the right friends around you, and later on in your life, you marry the right person. And all of them, both of them have been given the criteria beautifully by the deen. Allah now tells us what you should look for in a spouse. Allah now tells us through the Ahlul Bayt who you should befriend and who you shouldn't befriend. Laid out beautifully. All in the hopes that these two groups might ignite a different you, a different version of you, an updated version of you, a changed you, a revolutionized you. And that's what I want for myself as well, for all of you, is to not accept status quo, to continue to climb and inch forward, even at a meticulous, monotonous, very slow pace. Doesn't matter. The first lecture, don't forget, Allah doesn't want you to come full-fledged. No, come slowly, crawl into the deen. Doesn't matter. It's firm. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. But you need to what? Remember, check your own pulse as a doctor and ensure that I know my soul's capacity, right? I'll do it slowly. Don't worry. There are some people who make acts of worship look easy. Other things are hard for them. For others, those things that are hard for you are very easy for them. It's all relative, right? So sometimes we judge the hardships of others, don't we? That, oh my God, they're going, oh, that's nothing. We went through it 10 times. Yeah, but that's you, that's them, Baba. Everyone has their capacity. Everyone has their own limits. It's you identifying your limits, creating the right people around you to support those limits. That's very, very key. And that's why when you look at Karbala, for example, Imam Hussein surrounded himself with the best ashab that anybody had. Can you imagine the monumental statement? Can you imagine as a companion of Imam Hussein? For them to hear from Imam Hussein's mouth himself that nobody had the ashab that I had, not even my grandfather Rasulullah. Dare I say one statement that's been said several times by different ulama in different languages, while there might be other imams who were calling people towards their path, inviting people towards their path, Hussein is that imam that was asking them to leave me in my path. Go back home. They don't want your head, they want my head on a spear. Shabi Ashur, he gives a beautiful khutbah to his companions. I've accepted your allegiance. I've accepted Jannat is wajib on you. There's a path now leading back to Medina. Take that path and go. It wasn't lip service, brothers and sisters. It's not like, oh, Allah, if you want to go, go. No, he went so far to even pair an Ansar with a Muhajir. Someone who lived in Medina, somebody who migrated to Medina. They may not know the roads back to Medina. So they would pair. You pair with you, you pair with you, and you make sure that they get home properly. You'd even map out their routes. Say, look, the best route is between these two mountains. Go now. You don't need to be here. You can go now. And when the candle was blown out in complete darkness, so there would be no sharmindagi and no embarrassment, when that flame was relit, not a single member of those companions left. And they would ask Mawla, where do you want us to go? If we were to die anyways in this perishing world, what better way to die than to serve you and your cause? One companion stands up and says, what answer will we give Fatima on the day of judgment, that when my son asked you for help, you left him high and dry in the plains of Karbala? One companion says that if they were to trample my body, cut me into 1,000 pieces, give my body back to life, wallah, 1,000 times I would say labbaik to you, Hussein. Imam Hussein didn't sugarcoat anything. He told him flat out, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to be mutilated. You're going to be killed in the most gruesome ways. They say on the night before Ashura, Imam Hussein is seen pacing outside the khayma. One of his companions, Anas, comes out and says, Mawla, out here, it's not safe. What are you doing out here? Come inside, let's. And he would take Anas, he looked out to the Maidan of Karbala. He says, Anas, do you see what I see? He says, Mawla, wallah, I don't see what you see. I see an open desert land. And he would point and he would say, that's where my Ali Akbar will fall from the horse. That's where my Qasim will call for me. That's where my Abbas's right arm will fall. That's where my Ali Asghar will be quenched with a 3-pronged arrow. This is where everything will happen. That is tomorrow. This is where it's all going to happen. And he laid it out one by one, tears flowing down the face of Hussein. My salams to you, to the companions of Imam Hussein, the friends of Imam Hussein, the spouses of Imam Hussein, the sisters of Imam Hussein, all of those who supported the cause of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When Hussein now had left the world, Asri Ashur, it was Zainab out of a burning tent. Hamid ibn Muslim says that I could see the daughter of Ali approaching this tent that was recently put on fire, smoke coming from the back. There was something in there that she wanted, but she would approach and retreat until finally she would come out and she would be carrying out a very bimari Karbala Imam Sajjad out of the tent and into safety. My salams to you, Zainab. You took Imamah from a burning tent and you said it all the way to Medina. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaliya al-ibadat, inshaAllah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to please give us that tawfiq to surround ourselves with the right people, to choose a proper spouse in our life, inshaAllah. We ask you, Allah, to assist us on this journey towards you. We ask you, Allah, please, to weaken the hands of the enemies of humanity, to strengthen the mustaza'afin in Yemen and Palestine, Iraq and Syria, Pakistan, Kashmir, China, Nigeria, everywhere up and down North America, all of those who are fighting this anti-racist movement. I ask you, Allah, please protect our African American brothers and sisters. And finally, Allah, we ask you, the one dua that's constant on our lips. We feel like the Imam is close. Wallahi, we feel like the Imam is close. I don't know, we don't know. But all I know is that when he does come, make us and our family stand beside him and support him in everything that he does. Thank you very much, one and all. May Allah bless you. Please be safe. May Allah protect all of you from this coronavirus, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.